Diolch i'r Ysgrifennydd Cabinet. Yr eitem nesaf yn agenda ni yw'r cwestiynau amserol. A'r cwestiwn cyntaf, Darren Millar.
Diolch, Llywydd. Will the Cabinet Secretary confirm what the Government's targets are for the 2018 PISA assessment?
Thank you, Darren, for the opportunity to discuss the 2018 PISA assessment today after yesterday's questions on the 2021 assessment. I'm clear that I expect to see improvement in Wales's 2018 PISA score, but in particular, I want to see progress in the performance above the 75th percentile.
I'm very grateful for that response. Cabinet Secretary, you know that the PISA results which were published last year showed that Wales has suffered a decade of decline in international league tables, with worse scores for literacy, maths and science in 2015 than they were in 2006. And those poor scores have prompted your predecessors to announce all sorts of Welsh Government targets, the most recent of which, of course, were in 2011. We had Leighton Andrews setting a target to be in the top 20 in the international league tables by 2015. That, of course, was highly unlikely and, as a result, was scrapped by his successor, Hugh Lewis, who set a new target of achieving scores of 500 at least in each of the subjects by 2021. Now, at the time of that announcement, you criticised the then Welsh Government's decision, saying that it was, and I quote, an example of absolute poverty of ambition, and you accused the government at that time of settling for mediocrity. Last week, you told the Children, Young People and Education Committee...
I want the question to be heard, please.
Diolch, Llywydd. Last week, you told...
I don't say these things and expect to be ignored. I want the question to be heard.
Diolch, Llywydd. Last week, you told the Children, Young People and Education Committee that the 2021 target was, and I quote, not my target, and you signalled that you were moving away from it. Yesterday, we saw the First Minister slapping you down for what you said, restating the commitment to the 2021 target, a particularly unedifying performance from the First Minister, given that today is Stand Up to Bullying Day. Now, that makes the Welsh Government look something of a two-headed beast pulling in different directions, a bit like the push-me-pull-you of Dr. Dolittle fame. So can I ask you, you've clarified your unambitious target for 2018. If the 2021 target is not your target, can you tell us what is your target for 2021 in particular? When can we expect to achieve that target? And what is your strategy for actually getting Wales there? Because I don't see one.
Thank you very much, Darren. I regret your unfortunate phraseology, which I don't think is called for in this situation, especially when referring it to a male and a female member of this Assembly. It has unfortunate connotations. However, you are absolutely right. Wales's current performance in the PISA rankings is not good enough. It wasn't good enough when I sat over there, and it certainly isn't good enough now that I sit here, and perhaps more importantly, have the opportunity to do something about it. Targets are, of course, important, but you can hit the target, Darren, and you can miss the point. Action is more so. Action is more so. I am very clear that I expect to see improvement in the next set of PISA results. But as the OECD said themselves, PISA should be used as a diagnostic tool, and it isn't just about one score. Using PISA data, it is clear to me that what we need to be doing more is to support what the OECD described as the 75th percentile. I am actively looking and scoping the introduction of a targeted scheme to better support our more able and talented pupils that will link to the successful SEREN network. This will complement the work with the Maths and Science Network, which I announced since the last PISA reports, so that we can focus very much on developing the skills of our teachers to support our more able and talented children. As you will be aware, as you take great interest in this, reading is the focus of the next PISA test. In the last PISA test, Wales had 3% in the top two levels, and I would be extremely disappointed if that number did not increase next time round.
Prina Piorwerth.
Diolch yn fawr iawn. Mae hyn berffaith amlwg i fi bod y Llywodraeth mewn cryn bicil ynglyn â'r mater yma. Mi gadwa i yn sylwadau yn fyr iawn. Mi oeddwn ni yn cyd-fynd â chi pan ydych chi'n eistedd ar y meinciau yma. Pan ydych chi sôn am ddiffyg uchelgais gweinidogion llafur o'ch blaen chi. Ond o fod wedi gwrando ar eich atebion chi heddiw, dydw i ddim yn clywed ydych chi hyd yn oed yn dal yn ymrwymiedig i'r targedau a dwedodd y prif weinidog ddoe yn berffaith glir, yr oedd o wedi ymrwymo iddyn nhw. Mi roi gyfle unwaith eto i chi ddweud a ydych chi yn cadw at y targed yma Carwyn Jones yn sicr yn ei barchu o hyd. Yn tei, a ydych chi'n dal yn cadw at y sylwadau wnaethach chi o'r meinciau yma bod angen i'r uchelgais fod yn fwy na hynny?
Thank you, Wyn. As you heard yesterday from the First Minister, 500 remains... Well, if you let me finish. 500 remains the long-term goal of the Welsh Government for the next but one set of PISA results. Therefore, we need to make progress in the next set of PISA results if we're to hit that next target. And that's why I, quite rightly, whilst I'm in this position, are focusing on interventions that will make a difference to the next set of PISA results, which will be an important waymark to the next set.
Diolch i'r Ysgrifennydd Cabinet. Yr cwestiwn nesaf gan Angela Burns.
Diolch, Presiding Officer. Will the Cabinet Secretary make a statement on the commercial access deal between NHS Wales and Roche, which will mean that breast cancer patients in Wales can access their Cwestiynau drug?
Thank you for the question. I'm delighted to announce that the commercial access agreement for Cwestiynau commences in Wales today, exactly the same time as in England, and is identical to that negotiated with NHS England. This is the type of medicine that the £80 million to treatment fund was set up to support.
Thank you, Cabinet Secretary. Your decision to enable access to Cwestiynau is a welcome development, and I would like to pay tribute to all the campaigners throughout the UK who have fought for so long to have access to this life-extending drug. This targeted therapy is vital for those who have certain HER2 positive breast cancers, but it originally came with a very high financial cost, and we all recognise that it is incumbent upon NICE to ensure that taxpayers' investment in modern drug treatments has a measure of cost effectiveness. Of course, it's not just about the money, as those who use this drug to have more time with their loved ones will attest. My understanding is that one of the reasons that Cwestiynau was able to gain NICE approval was because of the revised methodology used to compare its efficacy against different combinations of treatment. Are you able to give an insight into the methodology process used by NICE? Is the principle behind the revised methodology process for green lighting Cwestiynau able to be used in connection with other drugs that are currently not available or can be, for example, comes to mind? I appreciate that you will not be able to disclose the detail of the commercial agreement between Welsh Government and Roche. However, I would be interested to know if it is the same deal as the one NHS England secured. And finally, what lessons are we able to take from this in order to exploit new drug therapies to help our sickest people, whilst preserving an appropriate margin window for developers and manufacturers, and at the same time ensuring taxpayers' money is spent wisely?
Thank you for the three distinct points of question. On the first of understanding whether there's been a different approach to the technology assessment undertaken by NICE on both the clinical effectiveness but also the cost effectiveness in terms of improved life outcomes. I couldn't honestly tell you about the detail of that. I'll happily have a conversation with officials and people in the Always Medicine Strategy to understand whether there is any difference, but I'm certainly not qualified to give you an answer whether there was a different approach. But I'll happily have a look at the process and the manner in which that's been undertaken and come back to you. On the second point about whether we have the same deal in Wales, yes, we do. We have the same terms applying in Wales at the same time. That's been part of the negotiation. I was actually in the audience at the NHS Confederation conference in England when Simon Stevens announced the deal from the stage, which set a few hairs running about whether there was an England-only deal or not. So I'm really happy to have been able to confirm it's an England and Wales deal with no differential in terms of the availability of the treatment here in Wales. And then for the future, I think this really does tell us something about not just campaigning, but actually about the grown-up relationship we need to have, both with the public, with decision makers, but also with people in the pharmaceutical industry. Because it's easy to run a campaign based on the emotion of people potentially having a life-extending or a life-saving drug. But as you rightly recognise, there has to be a balance for the public person, for all of us together, about how much we are collectively prepared to pay for individual treatments and to understand the genuine efficacy of those treatments. We've seen in the Cancer Drugs Fund, the independent review, that recognised that of the £1.27 billion, about £1 billion couldn't really have been said to have been spent on improving outcomes. Now, that's a poor way to go about this, and I don't think a great use of public money. So we do have to understand a process that is genuine, that is expert and evidence-led, provides proper reassurance about the value and the efficacy of treatments, and equally that more grown-up conversation with the pharmaceutical is what they can expect and what the public purse can and will deliver, and the evidence we require on that efficacy and the cost and value of it.
Rhyn ap Iorwerth.
Diolch yn fawr iawn. Gai na groesawu y cam yma sydd wedi cael ei gymryd. Mae'r egwyddor wedi sefydlu o ran y cyffyrdd yma. Yr ymarferol, wrth gwrs, sydd yn bwysig i ddioddefwyr. Y canser yma sy'n gallu mae'r cyffur yma wedi gynllunio ar ei gyfer o. Felly, dau gwestiwn syml, pa bryd rwan yn ymarferol fydd y cyffur yma ar gael yng Nghymru, a faint o amser fydd yn rhaid i gleifion aros i gael presgripsiwn i'r cyffur yma. A un cwestiwn pellach ynglyn â chyffur arall, yma breast cancer 9 yn codi pryderon ynglyn â fo, tra'n croesawu'r cytundeb ar Godzilla. Mi ddyfynnau gan Delyth Morgan, Prifeithredwr Breast Cancer Now. This news comes at a time when there is a real possibility that Perjeta, excuse me if I haven't got the pronunciation right, the first-line treatment for this group of patients could soon be removed from NHS use with a decision imminent. Perjeta's benefits are extraordinary, offering nearly 16 additional months of life to women with incurable breast cancer, and it is imperative that a solution is found to save this drug at a cost affordable to both the NHS and the taxpayer. Felly, tra da ni'n croesawu'r cam ar Godzilla, allwch chi'n diweddaru ni ynglyn â'r cyffur arall hefyd.
Yes, and the point about Consider is that initially the manufacturer had a cost price that was simply too high for the health service to pay. And that was the advice that health ministers were given. That's why the drug wasn't available. There's now been a reconsideration, and that's very welcome. The challenge is for any indication, whether it's Perjeta or any other drug, the balance between, like I said, effectiveness in clinical terms and the cost effectiveness of it as well. And in the IPFR process that we collectively agreed to run through, that came back very clearly as a unanimous point from the panel about not losing sight of the fact that there is a cost to this, and every penny we spend on one particular treatment is a penny in a pound that we don't spend on other treatments as well. So that balance has to be maintained. And I would again encourage manufacturers to get involved at an early point to discuss the effectiveness and the cost effectiveness of their treatments, and what that means in terms of having genuine access to the service, to actually understand more about the development of the treatment as well as more people take it, because otherwise we'll continue to have these emotionally driven campaigns about people who think that a drug may offer them a chance to extend life or to save life, but all of our understanding that actually you can't simply pay any price for any treatment. And that's really difficult, where if you look someone in the eye and you say, I think that this potential treatment that you want to have is too expensive. But if we don't do that, then our service becomes unaffordable. And if we're not prepared to do that, potentially risk the whole service that does so much good and so much positively as well. So if we can't hold the line about having an evidence-led approach to this, then I think we actually risk and undermine the whole service. That's a difficult point, but I think it's absolutely the right one, and it's certainly the unanimous with the IPFR panel that the recent reported to all of us in the last few months.
Caroline Jones.
And thank you to my colleague Angela Burns for bringing forward this important topic. Cabinet Secretary, the deal between NHS Wales and Roche is terrific news for breast cancer sufferers in Wales, and a perfect example of what we can achieve when we work in conjunction with the pharmaceutical industry. This deal and the new treatments fund means that women with HER2 positive tumours can gain a few valuable extra months of life and avoid the issue we had with Herceptin. These new innovative treatments are targeted at relatively small cohorts and are much more expensive. What is the Welsh Government doing to ensure we are aware of drugs in the pipeline? And will you work with your colleagues in England, Scotland and Northern Ireland to achieve commercial access deals on other initiative treatments in future?
Yes, I'm happy to respond. Of course, this particular drug has an average 6 months of extra life. And it's about the value and the cost of that. And again, these are really difficult assessments to make, which is why, frankly, politicians are often the worst people to try and make that assessment. However, on the broader point about the understanding of what is in the pipeline, I actually had, in recent months, a very sensible conversation with the Association of the British Pharmaceutical Industry and their Wales Rep board member, who happens to work for Roche, and which is a matter of coincidence, but about the manner in which we have conversations as drugs are being developed, and at what point in time the pharmaceutical industry can have that conversation with governments and with appraisal bodies. Because the sooner you know something is potentially available, the earlier you are able to plan. And actually, that sort of grown-up approach is really important for us, because the NHS has to be able to try and budget for new treatments coming on board. It has to be able to try and plan the infrastructure around those as well. It's often more important than the cost of paying for the medication cost. And it's then also about the industry understanding that it has an interest in being open at a slightly earlier stage with us about what is coming down the line. Otherwise, we're not having these sort of fights on a basis that isn't good for them as an industry partner, isn't good for the health service, but ultimately isn't good for the individual citizens who are then caught up in a campaign between different parts of the public sector and the industry who are trying to offer a treatment that they are saying will provide a real benefit for them. So I'm optimistic that we are continuing to have that grown-up and necessary conversation about the way in which we work together and understand our competing interests. I don't try to sell the pharmaceutical industry. They should not be entitled to make a profit in the way they run their business and what they put into developing new treatments. But it has to come at a price that is affordable for the taxpayer and with real value in terms of improving outcomes to the individual citizen as well.
Diolch i'r Ysgrifennydd Cabinet. Yr datganiadau 90 eiliad yw'r eitem nesaf ar yr agenda.